Oh, me, oh, my.
This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
I want to tell you about our newest sponsor, Team Top Cat Sales. Are you looking for team apparel for your high school, your club sports team, or corporation? Look no further than Top Cat Sales, located on the east side of Main Street in downtown Royal Oak, between 11 and 12 Mile. Through founder and former University of Michigan QB John Wangler's leadership, Top Cat Sales has developed a tradition of selling and distributing custom Adidas team apparel with the highest quality and best service. Get your organization, school, or club team all in with Adidas today by going to topcatteamsales.com. That's topcatteamsales.com. Also, follow Top Cat on Twitter at Team Top Cat.
Hey everybody, this is Freddie Cohen of ESPN Radio. When I'm not talking about breaking news or breaking news on ESPN Radio, I'm always a fan and listen to the Detroit Sports Podcast, and so should you.
Bada boom! Thank you for listening to another episode on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Joining me, my cousin, Adam, the Jock Strozinski. What's up, cuz?
Bada boom! Realest guys in the room! How you doing?
I love it. This right here, this is the draft preview show. This is like Christmas if you're a Lions fan, because God knows they ain't making it to a damn Super Bowl ever. Not in my lifetime, not in your lifetime, not in anybody's damn lifetime. So you know what we got to live for? We got to live for Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Oh, it's the draft.
You know, this episode 142 is a big show. Got the almonds ready, the brain food, got the water ready. We got great guests lined up who love the Detroit Lions, going to break down the NFL draft with us. Stay with us on this podcast. Detroit News Lions beat writer Josh Katzenstein will join us. And from Pride of Detroit, Mike Payton. These guys will break it down with us, kind of give us a little insight into who these Detroit Lions are targeting, who they should not target, and hopefully give us a little bit of insight into what's going to happen tonight. When you're listening to this, the draft is upon us. I can't wait to talk about it a little bit later on in the podcast. But we got to first break it down. We have to introduce some topics with the Detroit Tigers because they made news. You'd think that, you know, the opening part of the season would be relatively quiet, play well, try to do your best. Oh, no. Oh, no. Everything that we've kind of thought with the Detroit Tigers is happening. We're already talking about firing Ausmus. We're already seeing the players revolting against the fans. Hey, now, I mean, we're just guys doing podcasts. We're not giving the finger to anybody. But these Detroit Tigers, man, they're a little bit a rowdy bunch.
Dude, we're 20 games into the season, and Ausmus might already be out the door. What is going on? Seriously.
But it's a start I expected.
I know you did. I did not, though. I really, you know what? I thought Ausmus would come back this season, have a little bit better handle on everything that's going on. To be honest with you, a few days ago on Twitter, you posed a question to me. Do you think Ausmus should be fired? Would you let the Tigers lose the next, I think it was 9 out of 10 games if it meant Ausmus gets fired? And I responded to you saying it's not Ausmus's problem right now. It's basically the bats have cooled down. They're not hitting the ball. And defense has just been a monster issue for this team.
Okay, good. I was going to clarify that with you.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's his fault. I'm saying the fact is, for the question, if you know he's going to be gone, and this would have to happen, they lose 9 of 10 or lose 10 straight, and he would be gone, I'm taking it.
See, I guess so. I guess if you're going to put a gun to my head and you're going to force me to pick, I'm going to have to go with it because the last couple of games, he's just made rookie mistakes. I mean, leaving pitchers in way too long. Guys are getting hit all over the ballpark. I mean, it doesn't help that the bats have cooled down, but it doesn't strike me as he's a leader in that locker room. If you're the manager, your main job is to control egos and put these guys in positions to win. And I don't think he's doing a good enough job controlling the egos in that room and putting them in positions to win. And that's 1A and 1B on your checklist as a manager of a major league ball club. So yes, I guess to circle back around to your question a few days ago on Twitter, and you can follow us on Twitter at Detroit Podcast. Yes, I would sit there and I would suck it up and I would let them lose 9 out of the next 10 games if it meant Ausmus was gone. All right. I look at it this way, I guess, a little bit. He's in a kind of a tight spot because your $30 million man, Miguel Cabrera, is not hitting the baseball right now. He got hot the other night, but you're not going to win games when he's up there striking out 3 and 4 times, swinging at everything. So when that's going on, that's how this team is built. This team is built like a major league softball team. They're built for power. They're supposed to boom the ball out of the park. They're not doing it right now. So once that dries up, you're not scoring runs. Your pitching staff, especially this back half of the pitching staff, isn't good enough to get you wins. What are you going to do? He's put in a bad spot himself. And I'm not here trying to make excuses for the guys because, believe me, there are numerous episodes where I've sat there and I basically have murdered this man. It's just, I think he's in a tight spot right now because the bats have cooled down. Defense is atrocious. This team was not built defensively anyways, but defense is atrocious. That bullpen looks a lot better. That's a bright spot. But that being said, he's leaving pitchers in way too long, and they're getting knocked all around the park in the middle to late innings.
The part that what I would want to talk to you about was, I think a lot of people, when you ask the question, should Brad Ausmus be let go, are looking at the word fairness. Is it fair for him to be let go? Is it really his fault? And if you want to look at it, no. There are things that are not exactly his fault. This roster is looking to, be void of leadership. It's looking to be struggling in key parts, and some of the big hitters are not performing. But in terms of discipline, in terms of the things you spoke of, and hell, even if it's not fair, for the greater good, is Brad Ausmus, and the question I always ask myself, and we asked it when he was first hired, is he the guy that, if he's leading this team, is going to lead them to postseason success and win the World Series? With this payroll, with the expectations, with what we've seen now for two seasons and now this, since his start, he's well under 500. Since that 27-12 start that he had his first year, he's been an under 500 manager. He's still learning on the job, and this start to the season you see now, this is a team that's just kind of going through the motions. And you had said something, in an earlier podcast that all he's got to do is roll out the balls and let them let them play and they'll be successful. No, this is a team with an attitude problem. You're starting to see anger boil over. Within 25 games, you're having closed-door meetings? Come on. There's a big issue going on with the Detroit Tigers. It starts with Brad Ausmus. Whether or not it's fair, sports sometimes is a brutal business. I would let him go. And if I was Al Avila, you're kicking yourself going, I had a chance for a fresh start. And if the rumors are true that the owner wants somebody else and Al Avila stood by him, that's already a knock against you. Brad Ausmus should be fired just for the greater good of the team and to start the process of looking towards winning the World Series. With him at the helm, they will not win nothing.
So let me ask you this then. If you don't want Brad Ausmus and you want him gone today, all right, draft day, you want him gone. He's fired. He's out of here. Who are you bringing in? Are you bringing Lloyd McClendon up? Are you bringing Gibby out the booth? Are you bringing Ron Gardenhire in here?
Nope.
Who are you doing? What are you doing here?
I'm bringing in the guy that's man's first base, Omar Vizquel. Let him see if he can connect with these players and see if he's got managerial skills. But the Tigers right now are in need of that Jim Leyland type manager. The guy he's going to need to be a tactical in-game manager, somebody that has a lot of experience. Maybe if Farrell gets fired, which is kind of swirling around Boston that he may be let go, this is a guy you can bring in here in the offseason. But I would say that you give Vizquel an interim job and you wait until the offseason, and then you go out there and do the thoroughest search. You get the guy with the best experience and the guy that will win you a World Series, hoping that he's a guy that's already done it. Farrell from Boston has done it. He might get fired. So you have some options, but it's just not Brad Ausmus. Anybody but Brad. ABB.
Would you maybe be on the phone trying to sit there and politic something out with Jim Leyland?
He's not going to do that to him.
Well, hold on. Here's the thing, though. Jim Leyland is coming back to coach. He's going to coach the World Baseball team for the United States. All right. So apparently there's an itch there. He's in tight with the organization. He respects most of these players that are on this roster, and he loves most of them. That guy gets emotional over, candy in a dish. So he loves these guys. Do you think there's a way you can maybe coerce him into coming back and basically running out the last, we'll say, 130, 140 games of the season here?
Here's an indictment. He may look at the roster and go, you know what? I might not be able to fix this.
Yeah, but here's the thing, though. Isn't this roster much better put together than the old rosters that
now you have
had?
to start asking that question.
Because if
Upton struggles. He had a history of struggling, bounced around the league. Mickey's getting a little bit older, struggling up and down. You may have to ask that question, are these guys really as talented, or are we overestimating their abilities?
If you remember when Jim Leyland was manager, he never had a bullpen. It was essentially like setting gas cans out there on the mound and saying, hey, go ahead, set yourselves on fire and roll around in it. That's what he had for a bullpen. So now you give him a much weaker starting rotation, but you give him a much better bullpen. You're right, Miguel Cabrera's on the downside of his career, I guess, at this point, but he's still one of the, top 5, top 10 players in the game. Victor Martinez, he looks to be healthy. I seen him running, and it's painful to watch him run, if that's what you want to call it. It's kind of like this skip and a hobble, skip and a hobble, skip and a hobble until he falls into whatever base he's going to. But Ian Kinsler, he's looked pretty solid throughout the start of the season. Justin Upton is
An enigma and a problem.
A major issue right now. He is a major issue. But you have talent on this team. There is talent here. I mean, this is one of the most expensive payrolls in baseball. It shouldn't be in this position. We're 20 games into the season, and we're talking about this right now. This shouldn't be happening. Honestly, this should be like a 17-3 or a 15-5 type baseball team, and they're struggling to get to 500.
Yeah, when you look around the division, you're sitting firmly in fourth. You know, you got the White Sox and KC with hot starts, and a lot of people are poo-pooing that, going, well, they're going to slow down. There's no guarantee they're going to slow down, and there's no guarantee the Tigers are ever going to play above a 500 clip. This is what we all were worried about when we started previewing the Tigers, that this is a 500 ball club, and this is how they're playing. And now you got, guys like Tyler Collins who are playing center field and looking brutal. I don't know if you ever seen that meme from last year when he went for, an easy routine, a fly ball, put his glove out and the ball just hit it and fell down.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw that one. And then on Monday versus Oakland, I mean, you're winning the game 6-0. High fly ball, you lose it in the lights. He gets a little bit of the Bronx cheer, but you're winning. I don't understand why that reaction so strongly in a game where you're winning.
Do you think that the Bronx cheer was for him or maybe more for Upton? Because if you remember how that play continued to play out, he misses the ball, Upton goes for it, he bobbles it, and then he just kind of looks at it like it just got sucked up in a black hole. And he's like, I don't know, the play's dead. While you've got guys rounding bases, headed to third, and he's just kind of like sitting there with his thumb in his nose. Do you think that was more for Upton, who's been struggling so heavily this season, or do you think it was for Tyler Collins?
No, it was for Tyler Collins. I mean, he's been struggling at the plate. He just kind of,
Or do you think it was because Jordan Zimmerman's scoreless streak has now just been broken? I mean, I think it's a culmination. I think this was just one of those like flashpoint moments where you've got A, B, and now C all going on all at once, and the fans just kind of let you have it.
Exactly, and you have to handle it better. You can't do that. But the part that was tough was the waving of the finger and the fact that he's like, F you all.
Oh, dude, the mouthing of it, yeah, it was brutal.
Within 4 seconds, our Twitter, someone had messaged us like, uh-oh, with a screenshot, and I was like, oh boy, here we go. And the roller coaster hit on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast with the memes and things like that. I understand he was frustrated, and I appreciate his apology. You just can't do that. And the way I looked at it was not so much what he did, but again, Brad Ausmus's reaction. He should have been yanked from the game immediately. And it's again another sign of him just kind of being a little bit too lenient. I think that Tyler Collins' punishment should have been an immediate removal from the game, not whatever happened in terms of just leaving him in there and a little chit-chat. He should have been gone. He should have even sent to the minors. And a lot of people were saying on our Twitter page, hey, Al Avila controls that. No, if Brad Ausmus goes, I want this guy in the minors, that has a lot of weight. So if he's gonna act like that, he shouldn't be up on the big club. But again, another sign of his lax and his inability to hold people accountable. Tyler Collins is still here with us.
Do you think the MLB missed an opportunity here by sending a message, by suspending him a game, maybe increasing the fine, anything along those sorts? Because at this point, it doesn't really look like he's going to be punished. I mean, he will be fined, and it'll be an undisclosed amount, but they're not going to suspend him. He's not getting sent down to the minors right now, and you've got a guy like Steven Moya down there just tearing it up. So
no, I don't think
it'd make prime sense to sit there and send him down or suspend him.
No, I think they understood because of the fact that he was contrite. He apologized. It was the heat of the moment. I just think that the Tigers need to kind of regroup, play a lot better brand of baseball, and really save Ausmus's job because you have situations where you have the guys that we expect so far. You have Kinsler playing well. You have pitcher Jordan Zimmerman doing well. We just need a lot of things to kind of pick up with Justin Upton and the other half of that lineup in order to move forward. So I'm thinking that, again, they're going to play at a 500 clip the rest of the month, but the fans are starting to get unruly, and it's starting to get to that crunch time where, people are starting to question Brad Ausmus's job.
At this point in the season, what surprised you the most? You brought up Jordan Zimmerman. I mean, the guy's basically been on fire all season. Jared Saltalamacchia has just been hitting timely hits. And then you've got Justin Upton, who can't seem to bat his way out of a paper bag, nor can he play defense in the field.
Yeah, the biggest surprise, obviously, Salty. He's got a nice bat. He's getting clutch hits, and he's a guy that's been a serviceable backup for McCann. So been very, very impressed with Saltalamacchia for sure.
You know what? I'm going to go a little bit different than you, and I'm going to take Jordan Zimmerman and his start. I think it's been incredible, and he's been the ace of this lineup thus far. On top of that, you couple that with Justin Upton's awful bat. This guy, he's like a career 280 hitter, and right now he's hitting below the Mendoza line. On top of it, he's compounding his struggles at the plate by his play in the field, and it's really making you scratch your head and say, what did we pay all this money for? I mean, you've got a guy who's not great in the field playing over there for the Mets, and that guy at least swings a pretty good bat.
Before we get to Doc's in session, I just want to get your panic level. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being relaxed, it's still early, 10 being freak out panic time. What's your scale?
About a 6.5, bordering on a 7 right now, because you don't want this to go on too much longer, because at this point, you're not guaranteed a playoff spot, especially in this division. You've got the White Sox and you've got the Royals both playing very well right now, and they're playing very good baseball. On top of that, you're heading into a stretch where you're going to be playing a lot of division foes, so every game counts as 2. If you get on a cold streak right now, it's going to be brutal, and it's going to be very hard to dig your way out.
10. I'm at a 10 because I'm just a crazy fanatic. I want them to be like the White Sox, be in first place and have no stress. But hey, it's still early. I do get it. I can probably agree with what you're saying, but I'm at a 10.
You're always at a 10.
Exactly. All right, let's take a quick break, take a timeout. We'll be right back with Doc's in session, and then stay with us later in the podcast. We're going to have conversations regarding the NFL draft with Josh Katzenstein and Mike Payton. Doc and Jock, Detroit Sports Podcast Network, episode 142.
Doc and Jock here for Fanatic U. If you're looking for some sweet sports swag and you love your Detroit teams, and I mean you really love your Detroit teams, you got to check out fanaticu.com and get the coolest gear out there and rock your Red Wings shirt, rock your Lions shirt, rock your Piston apparel, wear it till the wheels fall off. Michigan State, you know what? They got it too. Check out Fanatic U. They have 6 locations all over Metro Detroit. Check them out, fanaticu.com.
Yeah, we coming now. Come on. Yeah, that's right. We put it down. It's like a family in here, just a little disabled. Putting it down, we lay them out on the table. Yeah. Who's in the house? The brothers in the house. Gotta turn it on out, let you know what we about. Kinda like Cain and Abel, a bit unstable. Don't be breaking the brain, break the whole damn table.
DetroitSportsPodcast.com brings to you Doc and Jock and all the other podcasts on this fine network. I appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun these last couple of weeks. Lots of engagement regarding the NFL draft, lots of talk with the Tigers, the disastrous playoffs with the Pistons and Red Wings, lots of things we've been biting on, and enjoy the network of podcasts that we're doing. And also definitely check out the one-on-one podcast series that we do, where we get a chance to talk to and get the stories of those that are working in the sports broadcasting field here in Detroit. So we appreciate all those that have been finding us, and definitely everyone's support with our podcast network. It makes it a lot of fun. All right, cuz, I've been waiting for it all week. It's time for the Doctor's in Session. I'm very curious to see what you got for me and what we call the Doctor is in Session.
But to be the man, you gotta beat the man. And I'm saying, woo, right here. I'm the man. Woo!
All right, King of the Couch, what are your thoughts on Kenny Holland's comments on Monday's locker room cleanout day?
Man, that was a situation where, if you're talking about what's best for business, his conversation to the paying customers, the fans of the Detroit Red Wings, was a total disaster. I mean, how do you come out there? I think he probably needed an extra week to probably decompress from being all up in his business and working and figuring out what the hell just happened in that 5-game series versus Tampa Bay, where you really had an opportunity to really advance, because Tampa Bay was, without some of their stars. But in the end, Tampa Bay, even without their best players, was able to defeat you. What's really tough and disappointing with that series was that a lot of things that the fans and people that were concerned about came to fruition. Who was going to score? You had the wrong matchups in. The power play unit was a disaster. Special teams was a disaster. And so Kenny Holland is now in a tough spot because he's got egg all over his face. His moves and the decisions by him and Jeff Blashill blew up in their face. It was a total disaster. And now you got Anthony Mantha lighting it up in Grand Rapids. Oh, I really need him scoring 2 and 3 goals in Grand Rapids for the Calder Cup. Yeah, I really need to see that. Of course that would happen. But in the end now, he comes out, and for those that didn't hear it, he said basically the fans in this era need to lessen their expectations that we're not going to win the cup every single year. Now, I get that. We all understand that. But what we're looking for, and the reason why the fans are upset, is we're looking for the trend to be upward. The trend for the Detroit Red Wings is not upward. It's down. The stock is down. Everyone is really worried and
It's been
frustrated.
falling for 6 years now.
The stock is falling. And now you're going to come out and say, lessen your expectation. No, I come out here and I want to raise my expectation. I know it's a salary cap era. We're not going to win 2, 3, 4 cups in 5 years. We get that. But is this team that you've assembled on the path to get to that? No, you're not. You are not a team on the rise. You're a team now with a lot of question marks. And now I know everyone was still sick of it from 2015 Tigers, the buy or sell type thing. You're going to have to start asking that with the Detroit Red Wings. In all seriousness, buy or sell. These guys, in my opinion, need to start shipping off the likes of Tatar and Nyquist and maybe even, the likes of Jimmy Howard or DeKaiser. He may be a top guy, but you have to really reshape this lineup because this collective unit, now with Datsyuk gone, is going to be in a tough spot. There's a situation where they may not even make the postseason now going forward. And he said it's not a rebuild. They're still going to retool. My confidence level in him is low. And as a general manager, I was talking to this with, I forget who now off the top of my head, but I was talking to him. I'm like, the message that he could have sent was really simple. We are dedicated to winning a Stanley Cup. The moves we've made haven't been good enough. I'm going to work day in, day out. I'll be in the office tomorrow, 7 a.m., and we're going to put together a roster that's going to make everybody proud when we go to the new stadium. Simple. 30 seconds. That wasn't even 30 seconds. That's all you got to say. Lessen my expectation. Are you kidding me? This is Hockey Town. This is what you've built. And so this is the result of your mistakes, Mr. Holland. And I'm not lessening my expectations. I'm actually raising them. My standards for the Red Wings are high. It's an elite hockey original six team. And this is a team that, needs to be, not eliminated 4 out of 5 years in the first round. This is a team that needs to actually consider making changes and consider, yes, go to the youth movement and go all the way with it. That's it. You can't rebuild halfway and say, yeah, we're going to, go this route because your power play, your special teams was a disaster. You've lost to Tampa Bay now 2 years. You've introduced now the concept that we want you gone. So that comment was totally out of line. And I think if he had it again, he would have went more PC. It was just, when you heard it, my first reaction was, okay, I'm taking 120 minutes because if I respond to this right now, I would have, beep, 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 and been in trouble because I was pissed. Truly pissed.
His comment screams of hubris. He is so self-confident, so assured of himself that basically he told you that if you're not on my train, then get the F off. And honestly, you said it yourself, the stock has been falling for 6 years now, and it doesn't look like it's going to have that upswing. I'm tired of hearing about prospects and what you have in your minor league system and how it's going to be great. The time is now. Anthony Mantha should have been up here playing now. I was tired of waiting for Jimmy Howard. That took forever, and now look at what I'm saddled with. I've got a really bad contract for the next couple years, and I've got a goalie who lost his job to a young upstart in Peter Mrazek. On top of that, guys like Thomas Tatar and Gustav Nyquist really didn't show up. I haven't seen, I don't know, honestly, I think Yurko is on a milk carton somewhere. Honestly, I don't know where he's been. He's been a disappearing act. Palkinen, he didn't even make the playoffs. So Ken Holland, I'm done with him. I'm done with him. I used to give Kenny a free pass. He used to be, in Kenny we trust, and I used to just kind of let it roll. Whatever he decided was best, and I would sit there and I'd co-sign it. I'm done with him. I'm absolutely done. You know what? I sat there and I went to bat, and I kind of argued the point with you a couple weeks ago, or maybe it was even last week, about Steve Yzerman and how we got to give Steve Yzerman some time down in Tampa Bay before you go ahead and you start blowing things out and changing it. No, get Steve Yzerman up here, get Chris Draper, go pay a king's ransom to get Jim Nill out of Dallas. I don't care. I'm done with Ken Holland. Absolutely done. And if you look at what Ken Holland built and how he built this team, it was all basically constructed by Jimmy Devellano. He had Jim Nill sitting there whispering sweet things in his ear. He had all these people surrounding him that really helped him make decisions. All those people are gone. They're all gone. And look at what you've been left with.
8 goals in a 5-game series.
Absolutely
Seriously? Atrocious.
All right. What do the Pistons need to do to add to help make them a more complete team so they can challenge for an NBA championship?
Ooh,
or at least get out of the first round.
Was I wrong? You didn't want to play the Cavaliers. I want to re-edit that. The Cavaliers manned up, and they took your best shot game 1. And what was really a little bit disappointing, not too much, but the Pistons weren't able to get back to that level of game 1. You've seen they were able to keep the games close, but the series played out in a situation where they were able to hang with Cleveland for the better part of 40 minutes, but basketball over 4 quarters is 48 minutes. The cream rises to the top, and the Cavaliers were just able to sweep you. So I understand that there were a lot of things that you could look at and break down going forward, but it was a good experience for these guys. Reggie Jackson, Andre Drummond, the youth of the team Stanley Johnson got a taste now of the postseason. This is a good step forward. So once they get away from it in a couple weeks, they'll look back and go, this was a great experience. Now, a lot of people now have the Pistons, and their eyes are going to be on them. What are you going to do to rebuild this team now to take that next step? Because you can't just, assume that this is a young team and they're going to be on the rise, because you have teams in the East like Milwaukee who have tried to rebuild and keep that success going forward, and they failed. Milwaukee didn't make the postseason this year. So what the Pistons need? One, the biggest key is they definitely need a backup point guard. Reggie Jackson cannot play 48 minutes. You saw when his minutes were elevated, he tired out, and his shots were starting to go short in a lot of the games late, because Steve Blake, give him credit, wily veteran, but you can't roll with him. Dinwiddie, you can't have too much confidence in him because he's been in the D League now the entire season, and I don't know if he's the guy that Stan Van's going to look to carry forward. So you need a backup point guard. You need maybe a stretch four. But really what you need, a guy like an Aaron Aflalo, a guy that can be that consistent go-to guy. And maybe you could also count on Jody Meeks coming back and being, an additional piece. But you need another scorer. You really need the elevation of the guys that are on there, like Reggie Jackson, KCP, and Andre Drummond. The biggest thing that's going to affect how the Pistons are going to be going forward is the level of passion and motivation of Jackson and Drummond to continue to get better and to improve their game. Andre's getting the max deal. Reggie's got a nice contract. They're going to have to step it up. You saw late in the games versus Cleveland that Reggie Jackson, over dribbles, doesn't have the ability yet to hit the big shots. I think that play in the last game was a little bit whack, trying to draw the foul instead of maybe passing the ball or actually going for the shot. Instead, when you look at the play on the replay,
He should have dribbled and laid it up. The whole middle was open. It parted like the Red Sea.
Exactly. So he's got to improve his decision making, and the Pistons as a whole, the stock is on the rise. They're a team that is exciting. They took the Cavaliers. They made it a series. They didn't get any wins, but they played tough. They didn't look like they were overwhelmed. They just need. And again, though, the other side of it, I love a superstar. I just would love that guy that would get his shot. You get it in the draft. Do you make some moves? Do you think outside the box, or you continue to build in this manner? And outside of that, continue to build that bench, because with a solid bench, then the starters definitely have the ability to go far. So Pistons, all credit for them. When you ask, was it a successful season despite getting swept? It was successful. Your goal was to make it to the postseason. Most people thought you were going to be a first-round team and out. That's what they did. Now, Andre, hit the gym, improve your free throw percentage, become more of a leader, and a guy that Stan Van can use late in games. Once that happens, look out. This team could be, top 5 seed next year. Look out.
Yeah, when you actually looked at what the starting five did compared to Cleveland's starting five, they were pretty much even. They were on par with each other, and Detroit's starting five didn't really struggle too much with Cleveland's. It's when they went to their bench, that's when the runs were made by the Cavaliers, and by the time the starters got back in, it was already too far gone. You're behind the 8 ball. Maybe a piece or two away, like you said. All right, I know this is a topic that you are pumped for. And
talk about getting excited.
All gun-ho for. What are your thoughts on the possibility of the MLS coming to Detroit? There's this giant groundswell with Tom Gores and
Dan Gilbert.
Dan Gilbert, thank you. It slipped my mind there. All right, what are your thoughts on these two guys putting something together to bring the MLS here?
Well, how awesome is that? 2 Michigan State guys coming at it, joining forces, and I love how they did it. They're both tweeting at each other, a little bit of subliminal messages. They're like, what? We can be competitors one day and business partners the next. So it's not too many times where you're scrolling on Twitter where you're like, oh, okay, another athlete did this, another athlete said this, okay, da-da-da-da, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden you read a scroll, big letters, and I got it from Detroit Sports Nation Twitter page, at DET Sports Nation, MLS to come to Detroit. And I'm like, yes.
Woo, woo, woo. You know it.
That was the first thing we wrote on my bio at DetroitSportsPodcast.com. Wants an MLS team in Detroit ASAP. And why? And for those of you who were, the response that we got on our page was a little bit mixed. But here's the reason why, for those of you that are soccer haters, those of you that tweeted me, it's like watching paint dry. You know what? If you're not a fan of cheering, if you're not a fan of being part of a large organization, or if you're not a fan of being a large group of people that cheer for one cause, okay, fine, don't be a part of it. If you're not a fan of getting a scarf that might say Detroit, whatever the name may be, and singing, cheering, dancing, having a good old time in an organized way for 2 hours, okay, fine, don't be on board. For those of you that haven't been a part of a soccer match or anything like that, go down and see Detroit City FC. You got rabid fans. They've had to expand because the fan base is so awesome. They cheer, they sing, they have a good time. It's a large community. Okay, now if you're going to sit there and, really critique soccer, yes, it can be boring, but go and absorb the environment. And if you don't get a thrill, you don't get an excitement, I got to check what's in your heart and soul. It's a fun environment. It's something that can unite the city, and something that if they can build a winner quickly, it's going to take time, because, there's a lot of talent across MLS, and it's not the same as European soccer. I get that. Don't be one of those guys that's a hater. Be a person that can be someone that can actually be open-minded. If you're not a fan of soccer, all I would say to you is go check out one match early on if they do this. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be totally fun. I'm saying it now. If they do it, I'm going to try and scrimp and save and work and do whatever I can to be a season ticket holder. 17 games. I don't know if it's going to be around a G or not, but I'm going to try my absolute best to go maybe to more than half the games or so and be a big supporter, because soccer is a great, fun sport. It's a way to unite people. It's a fun environment. You sing, you dance. And here's the best part. It's 2 hours. It's going to be a 2-hour experience. The game's going to start off at 8. You'll be done by 10. Get out and about. Another new arena, another new avenue for fans to get together, have some cocktails, be all together, watch and support the Detroit club when it comes here to MLS. I can't speak highly enough about how awesome it is that Goris and Dan Gilbert are going to put money into Detroit, build another arena and another platform for people to get back downtown, another avenue for entertainment. Cannot champion enough. I was super excited. I hope it happens. I hope, the bureaucracy don't get involved and try to snag this and ruin this dream, because they're talking, because there's a lot of ethnic people in Detroit. There's going to be a lot of support. They've drawn 100,000 people at the Big House for when Manchester United played Real Madrid. They're coming back again this summer. I think it's Chelsea versus Real Madrid. So if you have any question marks, get out there to Ann Arbor. You can get a ticket relatively inexpensively. Sit and watch the environment. Sit and watch the people and what it's like to be in that environment to watch a soccer match. You can't not. Hopefully my passion comes through this microphone. I hope you understand. It'll be fun. It'll be something fun and a new avenue that maybe, if they're more successful than the Lions, which 80% of our Twitter followers believe will happen first. 80% believe that the Detroit Soccer Club will have a championship before the Lions. True that. And it'll be a fun time. Definitely check it out. Detroit MLS soccer needs to happen. I'm super excited. I can't wait for it.
If it's done properly, it can be very, very successful. You don't want to make your stadium too big, because then you're going to have trouble filling it.
12,000.
All the overhead.
12,000.
I was thinking more around 15, but
yeah, 12, 15.
Yeah, I think we're in the same ballpark here. I think it can be very successful. I think it'd be a great thing to add another a fifth sports team to our area, fifth professional sports team. That's insane. Now count on having Michigan State and Michigan football. It's incredible. Detroit is a great place to live, and it's a great sports
It's the
town.
final cog. It's all you need, man. You need the big sports, and then you need some soccer here. It's already here. Check out Detroit City FC. It's already here. It's big. They're growing and expanding too. So there's a lot of things going on around town with soccer, and it's just the groundswell is picking up, and now people are noticing, and the big dogs are going to pump some money into it. You cannot understate how important that is and how fun that could be. The potential is going to be so awesome. Can't wait. I cannot wait. Woo, I can't believe you asked that question. What a great question to ask. I knew you'd know I'd be excited about that. Woo, I was so excited. I was almost jumping. I was like, yes, finally. And of course, how else better could it be where you got two billionaires who pump money in? So there's going to be no shortage of money, so as long as the fans support it, then you could maybe just pick up a Ronaldo when he's 35 years old. Hey, dream big. Pick up a Messi when he's 36. I don't care if he's late and is hobbling on 2 feet. Messi in the MLS in Detroit, you know they're going to shoot for one superstar. And I know people that are hardcore will understand this, that the MLS is kind of the ground where the European guys go to kind of retire when they're later in their careers, 32, 33. Beckham did it. You had guys that are kind of a little bit late in the tooth coming over here. I'll take it all day. Doesn't matter. Come over here, run around our turf, and let's have a good old time.
Right there with you, man. I think it'd be a great thing.
Awesome stuff, sir. You always bring the great questions, and I know there's been a lot of disappointment with April and the D, but that news was unbelievable. Stay with us. Coming up next, we got Josh Katzenstein. We're going to definitely talk about the NFL draft, what the Lions are doing, some sleepers, and we're also going to check in with Mike Payton from PrideOfDetroit.com. Stay with us. Our football experts come here to the Detroit Sports Podcast. Doc and Jock, episode 142.
On the phone with us right now is Detroit News, Detroit Lions beat writer Josh Katzenstein. Josh, what's going on, buddy?
Not a whole lot. How you guys doing?
Excellent. Today is draft day, as you know, and you've been pumping out a bunch of articles. I've been following along here. I want to know, how do you see Bob Quinn approaching this draft?
It's a good question. I mean, obviously, the only thing we know for sure is that he's gonna, try to find some talent. I'm actually looking right now at some of the, Patriots past draft, trying to find trends. And really, I mean, the first thing that sticks out, everyone talks about how, the Patriots want to trade back and acquire more picks. And I mean, they seem to do that successfully every year. And for the most part, it's not their first round picks that they're trading. So I know a lot of people are wondering if the Lions will move out of that number 16 spot, but I expect them to stay because, I mean, when you look at the roster, there are some top-end guys, with talent, but for the most part, the Lions really do need more talented players, and you're going to get someone better at 16 than, back at 21 or something like that. So I think it just makes sense for them to stay. They have a bunch of holes and a bunch of, positions that they could upgrade for the future. So I think they should have a lot of options, and, we'll see what Quinn does after that. But I think, there's definitely a chance you'll see some, action where he acquires more picks, whether that's for this year or the future.
Well, with all that being said, who do you expect the Lions to draft in the first round then if they're going to stay at 16?
In my last mock draft, I had Leonard Floyd, the outside linebacker from Georgia. I know a lot of people haven't really tied him to the Lions. A lot of people are saying, a lot of the national people are thinking, wide receiver. But I don't see the Lions going after that in the first round. I think that's a position that they feel pretty good at with Golden Tate and Marvin Jones, and they can add, another guy later in the draft. But I would expect, a pass rusher like Leonard Floyd to be attractive to them because he's sort of like, what they expected to have in Kyle Van Noy, but obviously that hasn't quite panned out yet in his first two seasons. So you could put Leonard Floyd, right at strong side linebacker, let him pass rush a little bit, let him cover a little bit. But if it's not him, I mean, there's a chance he obviously goes sooner than 16. I would say probably the best offensive tackle or defensive lineman on the board is where the Lions go. So if a guy like Sheldon Rankins or Jack Conklin falls at 16, I think those would make a lot of sense. Maybe Jaron Reed, the defensive tackle from Alabama. So there's a lot of ways they could go, but I think most likely scenario is a lineman of some sort, or if a guy like Floyd falls.
Now, Josh, I've been looking at a lot of mock drafts as well, and a lot of people are also starting to maybe look at Taylor Decker, offensive tackle. In terms of what the Lions' needs are, do you feel like they should really focus in the first round on the defensive line or the offensive line? Which position do you feel like would help improve the Lions the best?
It's tough to say. I mean, I feel like they're both really big needs. I think for 2016, I think the best option for them would be an offensive tackle, because if they got Taylor Decker or Jack Conklin at 16, that guy could just come in and play right tackle right away. And then if you're confident that that guy can eventually become a left tackle, then maybe he could move over there because Riley Reef is playing in the last year of his deal. So I think that's a pick that would make a lot of sense, because a tackle he would be an impact player in theory, because there would be an opportunity for him to start. And then at the same time, defensive tackle, they did sign three guys, since March at that spot, but, really all those guys are short-term deals. Haloti Ngata's a 2-year deal, but, that most likely will become a 1-year deal based on the money. Tyron Walker's a 1-year deal. Stephon Charles is a 1-year deal. So I think, adding someone who can not only contribute in the rotation this year, because, none of those guys, except maybe Ngata, have proven to be, top-end talents, get a guy that can contribute and solidify that position for the long term.
Now, a pick and a name I hear quite a bit is wide receiver Laquan Treadwell. It's a name that kind of disappoints me because they have made some free agent moves at wide receiver. Do you see any scenario in which they draft wide receiver Laquan Treadwell?
I don't see it. There's definitely a chance, just because we don't know exactly what the Lions are thinking here. And until they say they're not drafting him, there's obviously going to be that chance. But I just don't think, Treadwell is a guy that would help so much in 2016. And really, you have to look, too. I think they have Golden Tate under contract for 3 more years. They have Marvin Jones under contract for 5 years. And obviously, you could use another, top-level threat. But at the same time, Jeremy Curley or TJ Jones, whichever one of them wins the number 3 job, on paper right now, those guys are maybe going to have 25 catches this year. So they're not really going to be contributing that much, because Theo Riddick's going to be involved. Eric Ebron's going to be involved. Amir Abdullah is going to be involved. So I just don't see that a first-round receiver would have nearly as much of an impact as other positions. So I don't see Treadwell being a fit. But if they did go wide receiver, I think Doxson from TCU would actually make more sense. But I just don't see them go in that direction.
Josh, do you see the Lions possibly taking either a late round or a mid-round project, or a guy with maybe some question marks, a guy like a Robert Nkemdiche if he falls that far, or a guy like a Jalen Smith who there's some question marks about whether or not he'll even play next year because of his knee?
I could see them doing it with Smith. The question is, where does Smith fall? Because with the way the Lions picks are set, I don't know that they're going to have an opportunity to take him where a lot of people are projecting late in the second round or in the third round, because they don't have, the third round pick until the compensatory picks, which are at the end of the round. So I don't know if Smith, I think it would make sense for them to take a chance on a guy like that, because if he does become healthy, I mean, that's the kind of talent that you're looking for to improve your team long term, obviously. I just think that, from what I'm hearing and reports and stuff like that, I think that they're sort of going to be out of a chance to grab him where it'd be appropriate. And then Nkemdiche, I don't really see coming here at all. Just with Caldwell's focus and what Quinn has said about, off-field issues, I just don't see why they would take a risk on a guy like that at a position that, is really talented with other guys, in defensive tackle.
Can we play a hypothetical real quick? Can I pose a situation to you and you tell me if I'm crazy or that they might even possibly be able to do something like this?
Sure.
Okay. So at 16, if everything falls the way I would like it to fall, they draft Jack Conklin, because I'm very fearful that Taylor Decker will become the Jeff Backus situation where they wanted Steve Hutchinson and they settled for Jeff Backus, and then we have years and years of talk about how Backus is awful when he was really just kind of an average tackle there. So they get Conklin, and this is something I posed to John a few weeks ago. They come back in the second round, and this is if he falls that far. Connor Cook falls to them in the second round. They pick up Connor Cook, and now they have their quarterback for the future, because Matt Stafford's contract is coming up in I believe 2 seasons, and he's looking to make a boatload of money. So instead of sitting there and paying him the boatload of money, you now have your quarterback for the future. You've got your left tackle for the future. You're pretty much good to go there, and then the rest of the draft is all defense. Do you see anything like that being a possibility and could happen?
No, I just don't.
Just blow it all out the water there. Just crush my dreams.
Yeah, no, you can just throw that one in the garbage can real quick.
All right, I see.
No. I mean, I like the idea. You guys know that I'm not the biggest fan of Matthew Stafford. I just don't think that he's proven that he is worth these max deals for a quarterback. So yeah, like you said, I mean, he's going to be getting that contract pretty much no matter what he does over these next couple of years, just because that's the market for quarterbacks. But at the same time, first of all, I think Cook will probably go before the Lions pick in the second round. I actually had him going at the end of the first round of my last mock because, the Broncos need a quarterback. Jets are looking for a quarterback. Cardinals could look for a quarterback. Saints could look for a quarterback. I think there's just going to be a lot more teams that are interested in Connor Cook earlier than the Lions would have the chance to take him. And I think it's just a lot more likely that the Lions wait until, the fifth round or later to take a potential backup.
I've been kind of looking at some sleepers, some guys that haven't been too highly touted, and one of them is Jason Spriggs, massive offensive tackle from Indiana. Is there a player in the draft that you've kind of researched that maybe a lot of people aren't talking about, that maybe that sleeper pick that the Lions could take, or could be the surprise pick of the entire NFL draft?
Well, I mean, one surprise pick that I wrote about last week is actually Daniel Braverman, the wide receiver from Western Michigan. I mean, he just projects as a really good slot receiver. I mean, he can pretty much do whatever you want, but then he has speed as well. And he told me that, there are some teams that think he could play outside. So I wouldn't be surprised if you saw him, fall late on day 2. But I think, there would be some people shocked by that. I guess just sticking with well, to get to your point, Jason Spriggs, I mean, I think there's a chance he goes late 1, but probably early 2, because, I mean, he has those sort of crazy Lane Johnson level testing scores, and teams are really looking for athletic, tackles, obviously. So I think, he might be a sleeper to some, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him go high. And then a couple other receivers, I really like Rashard Higgins from Colorado State. He didn't have a great year last year, but in 2014, he was the best wide receiver in college football. He's got size, he's got speed. I mean, I feel like he can really do anything you want. That's a guy that, in the second round, I think could really help the Lions. If they don't move back, I think the second round, just because they don't pick so late in the third round, if I had to, make a rough guess, I would say that there's a chance they'd swap that second round pick to try to get another second and a third, but that might be a little bit too much conjecture. And then another guy, Kearis Garrett, a wide receiver from Tulsa, another big guy that, would make a lot of sense because he's rangy and, would remind Matthew Stafford in some ways of Calvin Johnson, but, not too much. We don't want to get too carried away.
All right, Josh, we'll get you out of here on this. What type of draft would make you excited? Now, I know you're not a fan, and that kind of runs counterintuitive to what you do for a living there, but what kind of draft following the Lions would make you excited?
As long as they take guys that are willing to talk to reporters, I'd be excited.
All right.
No, but beyond that, I really think that the Lions would be smart to establish some sort of position of strength. Right now, I don't know that there's any position that you would qualify necessarily as a strength. I suppose you could say cornerback, depending on how you feel about Alex Carter. But, that's another position that they could still take, a guy or two in the draft. So I think what would be smart is, load up on a couple defensive ends, load up on a couple, linebackers or receivers. Just make picks that will, or offensive linemen even. Just make some picks that, look like it's going to immediately improve a certain position because, if your offensive line is really good, that's going to help everything else. If your secondary is really good, that's going to help the rest of the defense. So I think, whatever area the Lions feel they need to do that. And defensive end is a really good one because you already have Ziggy Ansah and Devin Taylor. So something along those lines I think should be exciting for Lions fans.
Josh Katzenstein, Detroit News, Detroit Lions beat writer. Thank you for giving us a few minutes. We appreciate it. I know it's a busy time for you. We look forward to chatting just before the season, maybe in the preseason. Take care, Josh. I really appreciate your time.
Awesome. Thanks a lot for having me, guys.
Thanks, bud.
That was Josh Katzenstein. A lot of good insight. I'm glad that he's a guy that definitely picks up the phone and has a lot of insight regarding the draft. Definitely check out his work, DetroitNews.com. You can follow him at Twitter, at Jay Katzenstein, definitely a regular contributor on the N Jock podcast, and we greatly appreciate it. All right, stay with us. Up next, keeping the draft talk rolling with Pride of Detroit's Mike Payton. Stay with us. I want to tell everyone out there about DetroitSportsNation.com. They're a great website, and they've been very supportive to all the shows on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. They host all the podcasts. They have great writers that cover all the Detroit teams, all the college teams. Check out their website and support those who support us. DetroitSportsNation.com. The collaboration has been excellent, and it's helped us to continue to grow and have great guests take phone calls. So our collaboration with the Detroit Sports Nation has really been successful, and support those who support us. DetroitSportsNation.com.
All right, Lions fans, on the line with us right now is Mike Payton from Pride of Detroit. What's going on, Mike? How you doing?
Good, guys. How are you?
Oh, excellent. Draft day is probably my favorite day. It's like a giant freaking holiday because the Lions aren't making it to the damn Super Bowl, so this is like Christmas for me.
Yeah, so you won't get hurt that bad.
Right. All right, so let's just get right into this here. What do you see the Lions doing in the first round?
Well, it's really going to depend on how things shake out, but I really see them going with a defensive lineman in the first round. Hopefully Sheldon Rankins or Andrew Billings from Baylor is going to be there. I just think that, you take a look at these offensive linemen, and to me, I just see a ton of Riley Reifs and nothing that you can really build on outside of Tencel and, maybe Ronnie Stanley. So I see you go defensive line in that first round and stabilize your line for the future.
Okay, so if we say at 16, who do you think would be the most impactful player, and the guy that Roger Goodell is going to read off for being the 16th pick, who's it going to be?
Just based off all the mock drafts that I've seen and how I think things will shake out, I think it's going to be Andrew Billings of Baylor. That is going to be who the Lions pick, and it's going to be a guy that's going to be around for a long time. He's only 20 years old. You're getting a lot of impact from him out of just a 20-year-old player. He's real strong. Has a powerlifting background, can move guys around, but he's still a guy that you're going to have to work on over the next couple of years. And backing up Haloti Ngata and Tyrone Walker is a perfect situation for him.
All right, heading into the draft this evening, how do you expect Bob Quinn to approach the draft?
Well, a lot of people think he's going to do the Patriot way thing. He's going to trade down and this and that, but I think he's going to use all 10 of those picks. He really, really preaches high on depth, so you're going to see a lot of positions that they already have being filled. Like wide receiver, maybe a running back will go late. I think they'll be looking for somebody to return kicks and punts. So maybe like the Jadon Mickens from Washington that might be in their plans, but. They're really going to take the depth route, and if they do wind up trading up, it'll be for something like a Ryan Kelly or Jason Spriggs, if they want to trade up from the second to grab one of those guys. But I really don't see it happening.
Okay, Mike. Now, in a lot of other mock drafts, I see the Lions potentially taking. I know one of the mock drafts I like to read is Charlie Casserly's. He has the Lions selecting Taylor Decker. So in a situation where the Lions take an offensive tackle, I know Adam's a little bit concerned because he feels like Jack Conklin might overall be the better offensive lineman. Do you think in terms of what you looked at, do you think Conklin may end up being the better offensive tackler than Taylor Decker? And if the Lions select Decker, would he be a good fit here?
Well, I think that Decker is going to be the better choice than Conklin. I do think that Conklin has a lot of hype going in with him, and I think he'll probably be drafted high or overdrafted by some team. I don't think Detroit should be that team, but I worry a lot about Conklin against players that are faster than him and players that have an inside move. He can't really seem to stop that kind of thing. So when you're going up against a guy like J.J. Watt, I'd rather have Taylor Decker there than Jack Conklin.
So I know I was reading some of your previous work, and you had Jaden Minkins going in the later rounds. How do you think the Lions are going to approach the later rounds?
Well, like you said, I think it's going to be depth guys like that. Jaden Minkins or, Dan Vitale from Northwestern is another guy I really like, the super back. He can play at just about any position on the line that you need him to. So I think that you're going to see a lot of depth and value picks like that. I don't think they're going to be going for guys like Tim Diche, who will probably fall pretty far going in this draft. They're not going to go any low character guys. It's all going to be depth and high character players that can contribute in some way right away.
Do you see the Lions possibly taking a quarterback, maybe in the 4th, 5th, 6th round?
Absolutely, yeah. I think there's a lot of guys. There's Kevin Hogan and Sudfeld, or those guys are going to be there at that point in time, and they definitely need to address the backup quarterback situation because Dan Orlovsky is just he's just not going to get it done. And if Matthew Stafford goes down,
you can say he's horrible.
Guy, then season's over.
Yeah, you can say Dano's horrible. Don't feel bad about that.
Yeah, Dano is horrible. I don't feel bad about that. And drafting a guy like Kevin Hogan would definitely be an upgrade for the Lions as a backup quarterback, and he's a guy that you can groom over the years to be that number 2 guy. And then, if you get to a certain point and Matthew Stafford's still your guy, then you use Kevin Hogan as trade bait.
All right, with the draft commencing here shortly, what move on draft night will make you absolutely lose your mind?
There's a couple of them. If the Lions decide to trade up into the top 10 and just give away a king's ransom, a first round next year and their first round this year, I will lose my mind. I will curse loudly. The other thing, obviously, taking Jack Conklin is just something that I really hope they don't do. I like Ryan Kelly a lot. He's a great center, but taking a center at 16 just does not seem sexy to me at all. So there's a lot of things that they can do that would make me lose my mind. And if Mayhew were still in control, I would guarantee you they would do one of them.
Right, absolutely.
Mike, that is so funny you just said that because literally 5 minutes before we had you on, I was just bantering with Adam and I said, you know what? Let's just make a dream scenario that the Lions trade a bunch of picks and Stafford to the Rams to get the number 1 pick in Jared Goff. And Adam gave me the frown and dirty look. And I'm like, come on, let's just dream. And you come on and you're like, no, do not. Whatever you do, don't be super aggressive and move up. So that's kind of funny.
Yeah, that would be just completely insane. Jeez. Los Angeles would be snickering at the Lions for the next couple of years if they were stealing Matthew Stafford from them. I would move to another city. I would be done. That would be it. That would be the final thing, I think.
All
That
right.
would be the nail in the coffin.
All right, speaking of quarterbacks, a quarterback that's been much talked about, Michigan State quarterback Connor Cook, could be a late first rounder or a guy that's taken in the second round. Do you think that he's going to be a productive pro and shake off all these, negative comments about his leadership, not being a captain his senior year? Connor Cook's a guy that just wins, and I do believe that whatever team is lucky enough to draft him could have some success. What are your thoughts about Connor Cook?
Well, I think Connor, when you look at this leadership thing and then not being a captain, I think it's just a bunch of talk. I think Connor Cook's a great quarterback. He's obviously not going to be one of the highest pick quarterbacks in this draft, but he's going to be a guy that could be a starter in the future. And if he does wind up going first round, I think Denver would probably be the team that would take him. They're going to be looking for a number one quarterback, and Sanchez is just not going to be that guy, and Connor Cook could be. But I think a better situation for Connor would be to wait till the second round, go with a team that already has a starting quarterback, maybe one that's about to retire. Something like in New Orleans, for instance, they could take a Connor Cook and sit with him for a couple of years until Drew Brees retires, and then he could easily move into that number one spot. I think that would be best for him.
Now, Mike, you're new to prideofdetroit.com. How did that relationship come about, and what are you going to be doing over there at Pride of Detroit?
Well, I've been covering the Lions here for about almost 2 years now, and Pride of Detroit was kind of the place I really wanted to be, and I was a sideline report, and I had a great year with them, and was able to kind of move up, and my contract ended, and Pride of Detroit was on the table, and I had to make that move. And they welcomed me aboard. I'm really happy to be with them. I'll be doing editorial work and writing news articles for them, and I'm really excited.
You can follow Mike at POD_Payton, PAYTON. Kind enough to give us his thoughts about the NFL draft, and we hope to have a chance to talk to you down the line. I'm glad you messaged me in the past and said, hey, I want to come on. I know I spoke to you on the Theo Gridiron Spite podcast. I look forward to talking with you in the future. Thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate you coming on and talking the NFL draft with us.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. Look forward to next time.
Thanks, Mike. We appreciate it.
Best of luck.
Thanks, guys.
That was Mike Payton, prideofdetroit.com. Great Lions writer. Have had a chance to talk to him on a couple of occasions. He knows his stuff as well. All right, cuz, we're definitely going to break down a mock draft that you've presented here, the final one before the big day, before everyone gets to hear what's going to happen when Roger Goodell goes up there and says that with the 16th pick, hopefully the Detroit Lions select. Now, I know I have in front of me, when doing this research, I was floored. There were literally 14 different names on here potentially that the Lions could draft, and a lot of them I would be happy with. I mean, a couple of them for sure I would be a little bit disappointed with, and one of them would be Laquan Treadwell. I don't feel like they need to address things. I don't believe they need to address the wide receiver position. So I'm going to ask you straight up, not who you think or things like that. Who do you want the Lions to select at 16 that would say to you, okay, this is a guy that will help this team win sooner rather than later? Who does Jock want? Lions, 16th pick.
I would love if they took Jack Conklin from Michigan State, offensive tackle. You bring him in, you slot him in as your left tackle, you move Riley Reif over to right. I think that front line on the offensive side is dramatically better. On top of that, this is a very deep draft. You can get your defensive end, you can go get your defensive tackle in the second round, and now you've just addressed and you strengthened both sides of your line. And we've talked about it time and time again. How do you win in this league? You got to win on the offensive line. You got to win on the defensive line. So you do that. That right there screams to me that this is a brand new regime. This is different. We're not going out and we're not drafting shiny, pretty pieces. We're not getting Cadillacs when all we really need is a road grader, So if you can get Jack Conklin, it's a 2-for-1 deal for me. You've helped solidify that offensive line. You come back that second round, and now you can pick up somebody to help your defensive line, whether it be an end because they're weak on end or it be a defensive tackle to help strengthen the middle.
Look at you, wrong again. You got to be kidding me. Offensive tackle. I know you want to keep Stafford upright. I know that it's a position of need, but I'm just a guy again. And I was firm when we talked about the Super Bowl. I'm going to be firm again. Defense wins championship. Support your superstar, Ziggy Ansah. Make it so that he's like, okay, I got a brother on the other side of the line, and it's not just me rushing the quarterback. So defensive end, Clemson, Shaq Lawson is the name I'm targeting. I could understand if they go in other directions.
I would support that. I'm cool with that. But the way I'm looking at it, the way I want it to go is you can get some help on that defensive end or that defensive line later on in the draft. Right now, you've got about, I think, 3, maybe 4 offensive tackles in this draft that can prove to be game changers. Laramie Tunsil's, of course, number 1. Roddy Stanley's number 2. After that, it's Jack Conklin. I don't want Taylor Decker. I fear like that. I really do fear the whole Jeff Backus effect there. So it's Jack Conklin for me. So
But likely
after those 3 guys, I have question marks.
Your scenario probably will play out differently because Conklin's probably going to be drafted the pick before 15. He slotted a lot in a lot of mock drafts to be 15.
That's the way it seems to go. It's going to have to get a little bit crazy up there for the first 7 picks.
So if they end up taking Taylor Decker, I know you're going to be a little bit concerned, but that's why we're hoping that they just kind of avoid that scenario and take someone on the defensive line. And I understand, too, they could also, a little bit of a sleeper pick is a cornerback out of Houston, William Jackson, somebody that's kind of graded pretty well that you might want to slot alongside Darius Slay. But as long as they address the defense, I know it's deep, but the defensive line is pretty deep at the top. So can you really get that impact player in the second rounds? You could, but the talent is really in the first 20 guys in terms of the defensive line and things like that. So I'm really hoping they really take someone, whether it be a Jerron Reed, whether it be a Shaq Lawson. Ashawn Robinson is a name that a lot of people are talking about. Andrew Billings out of Baylor, I think Josh talked about as well. So
what about a Reggie Ragland to fill that middle linebacker position for the Lions?
Yep, all those names I'd be happy with. Again, if they go the offensive line, if they go, Decker, Conklin, I could be okay with it. But if they go with the wide receiver or any other kind of position like that, I would be a little bit disappointed. And I'm hoping that I got a good vibe that the Lions are not going to make me curse. I got a feeling no cursing on Thursday. No doubt about it.
Well, I'm glad you said Shaq Lawson because then you're going to like Daniel Jeremiah's final mock draft. This is his mock draft 8.0. You realize this guy put out 8 of them. I didn't put out 1 of them, but he put out 8 of them. And in his mock draft 8.0 on NFL.com.
The best part is with that is that you didn't put out any of them. So I'm like, you know what? Let's just go to our contacts. Let them tell us who they want, and we'll make a shorter version of the article. Instead of 30 picks, let's just put out 10. 10 picks of our supporters. Find it at DetroitSportsPodcast.com.
So on Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft at 16, the Detroit Lions select the man you want, defensive end out of Clemson, Shaq Lawson. Before Shaq Lawson goes, the guy I want, Jack Conklin, gets selected by Tennessee. And after that, at 17, the Atlanta Falcons take Deron Lee, outside linebacker. Easy for me to say, right? So Reggie Ragland does go 19 in this mock draft. It's another guy that we've targeted. Kevin Dodd, defensive end out of Clemson. He goes 20th. And these are all names that have been linked to your Detroit Lions, so we're just kind of giving you a little update here. Jerron Reed, defensive tackle from Alabama, goes to the Steelers. So if he goes to the Steelers, he's going to be a stud. Sheldon Rankin goes to Seattle, defensive tackle out of Louisville.
See, that's a guy's name that's kind of now been talked about. Dave Burkett wrote an article at Freep.com, and he talked about the five draftees that the Lions could take, and he had Sheldon Rankins up there. But if you look at it across a lot of the mock drafts, he's ranked a little bit lower. So if they were to trade down, maybe that could be a guy you can maybe make a move with Seattle if they maybe want a wide receiver. If they want a Treadwell and they know that there's a demand for him, maybe you make a move with Seattle and you go down and you take Rankins. I would kind of be in favor of that if they do trade down. I know that Josh told us that Bob Quinn in New England typically doesn't trade down a lot with their first round pick, but in this scenario, if they do, and I would be fully in support of taking Rankings at the lower end of the first round if they move down.
Most definitely. I think for the last couple of years, we both have been screaming that if they can trade back in the first round, even trade back in the second round, get more picks, acquire more selections to help fill all the holes on this team, I think we're both all for it. You got to remember, too, third round is going to be kind of weird for this team when they finally get to that point. They have 2 compensatory picks in the third round, and that's all they've got. So if they're either looking to move up or they're looking to trade some of those back, they can't because they're compensatory picks, and you can't trade your compensatory picks until 2017. They have later picks in the third round, so I would look for them, if they do get the chance to sit there and trade back in the first round or in the second round, to sit there and acquire some picks in that third round to help kind of fill them out at the top of that draft in the third round.
Do you got a good vibe going into this draft for the Detroit Lions that they're gonna, try to fill out this board and try to improve this team with a lot of picks? They've got like around 10, 11 picks. They're in a scenario.
10 picks.
Yeah,
10 picks to start draft day off.
They're in a position to make some moves to even acquire more, whether it be this year or next year. I just got a good vibe that Bob Quinn's going to come out looking like a genius and come out in a scenario where a lot of people are going to be like, okay, finally, we're in the right boat. And talking to a couple people, a lot of fans are going, well, whoever they pick is going to be a bust. Whoever they're going to get after is going to be more successful than the Lions get. But we have hope in Bob Quinn. So it's kind of one of those,
I don't think you can have it both ways.
Right.
You have to have one or the other, right?
No, they believe in the curse. A lot of people believe that, you know what? If a Shaq Lawson comes here, he would have been way better if he would have been drafted after us. And if whoever comes here is just going to be infiltrated by the Lions and whatever it is that is causing all this mess, and it's going to cause their career to go down in the toilet. So that's where the fans are at. But they do have hope. They do have faith that Bob Quinn will at least get the right guy. But is he going to be enough to fight the Lions' curse and make the player that they draft effective? People don't have that kind of hope just yet.
I don't think you can have it both ways. I think you're either on board for Bob Quinn and what Bob Quinn's going to do, whether he drafts an offensive tackle, a defensive end, defensive tackle, or a cornerback, or whatever. I think you have to have faith in what he does. I don't think you can sit there and you can be like, oh, he's going to suck either way because it's the Lions. I mean, I know that we are all bred this way. If you are born a Detroit Lions fan, if your parents somehow curse you this way, like mine have, like yours have, if you are born this way, you are born and conditioned to think that everything that the Lions do will screw up and backfire in some way or another. And we've talked about it. We've touched on it in this very podcast. It's just how you're conditioned. You have to fight that. You got to fight it. And if you're going to be all in for Bob Quinn, you got to believe in what he's going to do.
Now, if you think, and a lot of people are looking, and it's been fascinating to me that they've kind of slotted Taylor Decker or Jack Conklin as a guy at 16. Do you see any scenario where the Lions and Bob Quinn are a little bit aggressive? Move up to 6, maybe get a Laramie Tunsil or a Ronnie Stanley. Maybe be a little bit aggressive with with some of the extra picks that you have and try to move up. Do you think they might be willing to do that? Or in the scenario, if they were to move up, who should they get? If they were to, be aggressive, make some moves, make some calls either to Dallas, Baltimore, San Francisco, maybe Cleveland at 8, who would you go get? Bosa?
No, they do need some help on that defensive end for this team because, I mean, really and truly, it's Ziggy Ansah and it's Ziggy Ansah at this point. But I'm not.
Go up to number 1 and get Goff. Trade the first, second, third, and Matthew Stafford. Now now I'm presenting the dream scenario, folks. With the 16th pick, the Lions have made a trade, and I'm like, oh baby, they have traded Matthew Stafford, the first round pick this year, next year, in 2019, and a second round pick to the Rams for the number 1 overall pick, and the Lions select Jared Goff, baby. No dream scenario?
No.
You don't seem as excited as I am, just kind of rolling through this.
I'm absolutely not. That's why.
Shame on you.
Yeah, shame on me. You're over here trading for quarterbacks.
Do we have one?
Well, we've got Matt Stafford, so I mean he's filling in for now.
So do we have one?
No.
Okay,
but
so
I don't know. You sat there and you mocked me for going to get Connor Cook in the second round, and you want to sit there and trade up to number 1 to go get Jared Goff.
Okay, so I'm pretty certain in your research, we said we were going to answer it last week. It's going to be Jared Goff, Carson Wentz.
Yes.
And the simple reason, and everyone knows it, is that Goff comes from the big program out there in California. He's a guy that's better suited.
Wait. You think Goff's going number 1?
I think Jared Goff's going number 1.
I think Carson Wentz is going number 1.
Oh, you're wrong, brother.
I think it's Carson Wentz who goes number 1 here.
Oh, you got to be kidding me. No.
You got to look at his mobility. He's able to make plays on the move. On top of it, hand size is a big deal. I don't really understand it. I mean, I do, but I think it's blown way out of proportion. Hand size is a big deal, and Jared Goff has baby hands.
Yeah. Now I think what you're describing is that who's going to shake out to be the better quarterback long
I'm
term.
talking about who's going number 1 here.
I don't think it's going to be Carson Wentz.
I think Carson Wentz goes number 1.
Oh man, Wentz played in a program in North Dakota. Come on, man. Goff played in California, big time program. I think that in LA, you want the guy that's going to be the poster board of your organization, the franchise guy. It's not going to be Carson Wentz. They're going to take Jared Goff. If you look at all the mock drafts, there aren't too many that say Wentz going number 1.
I don't know. We'll see what happens.
But I do, though, agree. I do give you credit that Carson Wentz, with the numbers and the things that he did at the Combine, may have the potential to be the better quarterback going forward. But right now, I do believe 1-2 will be Goff and Carson Wentz.
It'll be interesting. We'll see what happens. I mean, I know I'm ready for draft day here. I can't wait for it to get underway.
Yeah, no doubt about it. What are you doing for the draft?
Same thing I'll do every year. I sit there, and it's basically me at home. I make myself some dinner, and then I park myself right in front of the couch. And then the wife yells at me to do something else with my life because she wants to watch, I don't know, something on Lifetime or some crap like that. And I'm like, no, we're watching this.
No, we're watching the draft. No,
That's right.
Definitely win out that battle. No, you absolutely have to. You have to make sure that
Try to get me to put Lifetime and shit on. Come on. Who the hell's watching that stuff?
Exactly. Are you kidding me right now?
Not me, bro.
It's the Lions Super Bowl. It might be the one the 1 or 2 days where we have that hope where we go, okay, Shaq Lawson is coming here to save the Lions. And then we go to training camp and we realize, okay, we still have Matthew Stafford throwing the football.
Training camp, he blows out his knee.
Yeah, exactly. So let us enjoy the next 3 days. Yeah, I'll be driving home. I think I'm recording a podcast Thursday evening. By 8 o'clock, we should be done. Drive home just in time. I think the Lions pick around 16. You're thinking maybe in the 9 to 10 o'clock hours will be that time for the Lions to make their pick. What are they? Still like 30 minutes for each team or so, or a little bit less?
I think you
15,
get
10?
You get. I thought it was 5 minutes in the first round. 5 or 10.
Yeah.
5 or 10
They've
minutes.
lowered it. Yeah.
5 or 10 minutes in the first round, and then after that, it goes up, I think, to 15 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm looking forward to this draft and looking forward to seeing what the Lions will do. And next week, I'm hoping put the feelers out. I think Dan Miller will come in here and break it all down, and we'll get his reaction to what the Lions did overall in the 2016 draft. I got a good feeling. A+. We'll come back in 2018 and look back at the draft, and when we go when Adam redrafts it and goes, this is what we did, he might be more satisfied than in years past because, the last couple of years he's wanted to just rip his hair out.
Oh, man, the last couple of years.
No Ebrons.
Dude, last couple of years, seriously. I mean, I have wanted to sit there and run out in front of a car because it's been that bad. And honestly, we don't have all the resources these guys have, but I really feel like our drafts are usually much better than what the Lions do. So hopefully this year Bob Quinn gets it right and I don't sit there and scream my head off.
Yes, sir. What a fun podcast. I mean, I love it, when you and I get a chance to talk about the things that are going around in Detroit sports. Now we get a chance to also get the insight from all the people that have been friends of the podcast. I want to thank everybody that did text me back. I mean, literally everybody I texted and said, hey, who you got? They were like, da-da-da-da, I think this, I think that. And they engaged in conversation, and they were genuinely excited to be part of the article that Adam produced.
The best part is everybody's got an opinion.
Everybody's got an opinion.
Everybody.
Literally 13. You want to know this real quick? Shaq Lawson, Jerron Reed, Kevin Dodd, Taylor Decker, Ashawn Robinson, Leonard Floyd, Ronnie Stanley, Andrew Billings, Sheldon Rankins, Conklin, Taylor Decker, Deron Lee, Laquan Treadwell, William Jackson. All those names on my paper could be drafted by the Lions. And the best part is, I know that in the NFL, they're trying to kind of keep everything under wraps. And this is something they've done quite a bit. There's nobody out there that's just going, they're taking this guy. Mm-hmm. So it's exciting. And for one time, I don't want to know. I just love the fact that there's this many options and everybody's, making their best pick. So Shaq Lawson is the right pick. That's from the Doc side. And Jock wants the dream scenario for them to take MSU guy, Jack Conklin. For the Jock, Adam Strozinski, I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Big thanks to Detroit News' Josh Katzenstein and prideofdetroit.com's Mike Payton for sharing their insights regarding the draft. This has been our draft edition of the Detroit Sports Podcast Doc and Jock program. Thank you. See everybody next week. Keep this train rolling, baby. See ya.
Go Lions.
Sorry, Detroit. Didn't quite work out.
And all I can say is Detroit Sports Podcast scores.
I have voices in my head, they counsel me, they understand, they talk to me. They talk to me.